Hey everybody, and welcome to Moscow Report for December 2019. Quick update for you on the state of the Russian aircraft carrier. But before I continue, please make sure you like this video, you subscribe to the channel, and share this video if you found it and the content on this channel to be awesome, because that really helps me out and makes me inspired to make more videos. Now, in 2017-2018, I reported on this channel that Russia was planning to build a brand new aircraft carrier that was going to be a full-sized aircraft carrier with Arctic capability. This was the Storm class. Well, they've had a few setbacks. Despite Vladimir Putin announcing all kinds of new weapons and technologies, Mr. Putin has not been investing into its country's infrastructure when it comes to maintaining and building new ships. The first setback was earlier this year in 2019 when the PD-50 floating dock that was used for maintenance and repair of large vessels, it was Russia's only floating dock, and it was actually not built by Russia but was purchased from Europe, sank while Admiral Kuznetzov was undergoing repairs within that dry dock. This was a huge setback because what it made it impossible to complete the repairs on the hull and the propellers of the Admiral Kuznetzov, basically locking the ship down and being completely useless. Now, never fear, even though the dry dock had sunk, the Admiral Kuznetzov was still undergoing repairs, because even if you can't work on the hull and on the prop, you can always tow it and park it next to a pier in Murmansk and work on the electronics and other equipment. So this work was underway in the last 6 months on the ship, including a contract to replace all telecommunications and interface conduits and cables on the ship. And this is basically a case of you going through your house and taking old cables out of the walls and replacing them with new cables. And this is a necessity because when the Kuznetsov was built, it was built on analog technologies, it was built on really old standards, and it was built on standards which were created and invented by the Soviet Union, which didn't match international standards, which makes it very hard to integrate it with any sort of imported technology. So part of the process was to rip out old cables, old communications lines, network cables, and so forth, and replace them with new cables. And unfortunately, there is very little efficiency in the Russian maintenance schedules, because this process was taking way too long, and they were leaving scraps and other components around as they were stripping out these cables. Of course, at the same time, while that was taking too long and falling behind schedule, repairs started on the upper hull of the Admiral Kuznetzov. And there was welding work being done in November and December. Part of that work led to embers from the welding to fall into the hull of the ship, which was filled with scrap from the repairs and the replacement of the telecommunication cables. And the scrap, of course, caught fire. That led to damage to the ship and a fairly loud explosion in the news that the Russians can't take care of their carrier. So this was a second blow to the prestige of the Russian Navy and maintenance teams in 2019 when this ship caught fire. And although it smokes fairly aggressively when it's out on the water because of its diesel engines, it smoked even harder on the pier. The fire was, of course, put out, and various amounts were estimated for the damage to the ship. So the damage on the ship was estimated to be anywhere between $20 million to $2 billion. However, I do not believe that the damage is $2 billion. I believe it is a much lower amount, and here's why. The new cabling was not yet installed, and it was old cables and old equipment that caught fire on the ship that was scheduled and slated for removal and disposal. So in a way, the welders did the ship a favor by burning down the old junk that was filling it, but at the same time, the hull was not damaged based on all the reports from the review committee that looked at the ship after the fire was put out. So in the long run, what does this fire and the sinking of the PD-50 mean for Admiral Kuznetzov? Well, first off, as I mentioned earlier, the fire is probably not that big of a deal because new equipment was not yet deployed, so it was just a case of old equipment and old cables and scrap that caught fire. They really have to look at their safety regulations when they're performing maintenance. However, the loss of the PD-50 dock and the dry dock itself is a much bigger issue, because the only other place that could maintain and build aircraft carriers within Soviet Union, and I'm talking 30 years ago, was at the Nikolaev Ocean Shipyard. But Nikolaev Shipyard is located in Ukraine, and with the current political climate, there is zero chance that there's going to be any sort of agreements between Ukraine and Russia to build or repair new aircraft carriers. So, at this point, repairs are still ongoing, maintenance is being performed, hopefully they don't set it on fire again. At the same time, there is a possibility of doing an enlargement of 2 existing dry docks, which will be merged together in Murmansk to allow for carrier-sized ships to enter to perform maintenance. If this is indeed completed, then there is a chance that the repairs on Admiral Kuznetzov will be completed and the ship will be seaworthy again. Otherwise, Russia will be looking at building a brand new repair and maintenance facility for their carriers and larger ships, because right now they've got nowhere to go and nowhere to fix their ships. With the current embargoes against Russia, there is very little they can do for foreign ports as well to go and do repairs, because unless they go to China, they've got nowhere else to fix their ships. Where else do you think Russia could go to get their repairs done? Do you think they're going to go to China? I don't know, but you're welcome to comment below. Remember to subscribe, to like this video, to share, leave some comments. Let me know what you think. Signing off.